Hi, scholars and parents. This is Ms. Palmer. I'm about to do a few examples from homework 7.2. Today, we practiced adding and subtracting decimals for the first time, and we used these grids in order to keep track of our work. So the first question asks us to add 58 hundredths and 2 5/10. So we haven't added decimals before, but we have drawn them on these grids. Let's start with the bigger number, 2 5/10. Each of these grids is equal to one whole, or 1.0, 1 and 0 tenths. And so we know we need 2, so we can shade in 2 right off the bat. Then we need to take a closer look at what the grid means. So there are 100 squares inside the grid. Each square represents 1/100th because it takes 100 hundredths to make a whole. Each of these columns, if you think of 10 hundredths in a row, each of these columns is equal to 1/10, 1/10 or 1/10. So if we need 5/10, we can shade in 5 of these columns. So I wrote down my notes for myself at the bottom. My red pencil represents 2 5/10. My smaller number is 58 hundredths. That's the same as 5/10 and 8 hundredths. So let's start by drawing 5/10. Again, we can shade in 5 of these columns, 3, 4, 5. So that gets us all the way to the end of this hole. So now we have 1, 2, 3 holes. But we still have this 8 hundredths to deal with. We already said each of the squares inside of the grid is 100th, so we just need to count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I took notes for myself again. The blue is equal to 58 hundredths, or 5/10 and 8 hundredths. And so then what I have to do is I have to figure out how many I have together. So I have 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes. And then I don't have any complete columns, so I have 0 tenths, but I do have 8 squares, so the 8 goes in the hundredths place. I have 3 8 hundredths. That is my answer to number 1. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 is subtraction. It asks us to do 1 31 hundredths minus 55 hundredths. Subtraction, we're going to do a little differently. We're going to start by drawing in one color, and then we're actually going to cross out squares with the other color. So I started with the red, the bigger number. So you always have the bigger number on top when we subtract. The red is going to be equal to 1 31 hundredths. I shaded in an entire hole in the red to represent the 1. And then the 3, that's in the tenths place, so I can shade in 3 columns to represent tenths. 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns. And then I just have 1 extra hundredth, so just 1 little extra square. Okay, 1 whole, 3 tenths, 1 hundredths. I made some notes for myself. Now, I need to cross out 55 hundredths in my blue marker. So I'm going to start by counting off 5. I'm going to count off that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've now crossed off 5. Those are my 5 hundredths. I still need to get rid of 5/10, but I'm going to do full columns so that it stays neat. So I'm going to cross out 1, 2 full columns, 3, 4, 5. So now the blue represents 55 hundredths. We've just layered it on top of our red. And what we have to do is we have to figure out what we have left. Let's see. We have 7/10 because there are 7 columns left in red over here. Then we have some hundredths. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hundredths left in red. So we have 7/10 of 0 holes, 7/10 and 6 hundredths, or 76 hundredths. That is our answer. The last two pages ask you to do division. We haven't done division with whole numbers in a while. I know we practice a lot in word problems, but we haven't practiced just division. So I'm going to do one of these. If you feel comfortable with division, go ahead and work on your own. So this question is 44,945 divided by 44. So I'm going to start off. I know that 44 does not go into 4, so I have to slide over. 44 goes into 49 one time. 1 times 44 is 44. I subtract and I get 5. Then I bring down my next digit. 44 goes into 54 one time. 1 times 44 is 44. This time when I subtract, I get 10. It's hard to see because I've already gone through the next step, but I got 10. And again, I brought down my other number. So I have 102. 44 goes into 102. I just guessed, but it was correct that it goes in 2 times. 2 times 44 is 88. And then I had to subtract. Subtracting required regrouping. I couldn't do 2 minus 8, but I also couldn't take anything from my tens place, so I had to go all the way over to my hundreds place. I made this 100 become a 0. I made the tens column become 10, but then I immediately crossed it out to make it a 9 so that I could bring my 10 all the way over. So I started here, I made it a 0, then I brought it over, and then I brought it over. So I have 12 minus 8 gives me 4. 9 minus 8 gives me 1. My remainder is 14 because there are no more digits to bring down. So my answer is 112, remainder 14. Okay, thank you so much for watching.